So the next thing I want to talk about is how both parties try to position themselves as the diversity party. The Democrats, they leaned into the fact that they are a Big Ten party. A lot of their, and I'm saying Big Tent, not Big Ten like the college football conference. Yeah, yeah. I realized that's what it sounded like. They're the Big Tent party, in which they pull in people from so many different demographics. Their representation in Congress and in higher office are people of different backgrounds and such. The first the first female candidate for president is a Democrat. The first Black president is a Democrat. The first there's another thing. The first female vice presidential candidate was a Democrat.
And now the first female
Ferraro. Yeah. Yeah, and then now the first, female person of color. Because
she's not.
If I say Black, someone's gonna be like, "Well, she's also half Indian." Yeah, so okay, yes, half Indian, half Black. So like they were leading into that, how they've always been the party that, and not always, because the Southern Democrats of the pre-60s were the party of pro-slavery, and all that stuff. It switched in the 60s when Kennedy became president, and they started becoming more liberal, and then the racist people, sorry to say it, but the racist people felt like they no longer had a place in the Democratic Party, and Nixon was like, "Hey, I'm your guy."
Yeah, and what's funny is that's kind of what I meant to ask is, I wonder, do you think it was just age? Because Jimmy Carter came from that line where he was one of the very few Southern Democrats who remained a Southern Democrat after all this stuff, because, just an FYI to anybody who doesn't know, he actually follows Christ-like more than
actually. Yes.
He actually does. He actually believes and actually follows what his Lord and Savior does versus other people. Anyways, I wonder, did the reason you think he wasn't he didn't speak was just his age? Because he's
because he did speak in a video. In a video package, because he and Biden go back well into when he became president, right? He was a Democratic president, Biden was a Democratic senator, and they had their relationship back
so
then.
He did speak. Okay,
he spoke on him. Yeah. He just couldn't physically record something live, because probably.
I'm saying right now, Jimmy Carter, not meeting Jimmy Carter ever in my life is going to be one of my biggest I really want to meet him, but
I think his presidency gets an unfair amount of flack. But as far as a person, just hearing from about what he does here in Georgia, Habitat for Humanity, even at this age, he's one of the all-time great people.
Yeah.
So, but sorry. So going away from that, right? Jimmy Carter actually is one of those early day progressives, at least for that time. As far as his radical thinking of Black people should be considered equal. So but anyway, so they were really leaning into the diversity party. The next week was the Republican National Convention, and my God, I have not seen so many Black people at a Republican convention in my life. There, you had Herschel Walker speak. You had this guy who also had the Georgia state seat, who is a Democrat, but is I'm voting for Trump because the Democrats aren't going to enslave my mind or some whatever. There's this this Black lady that sent in her video submission that's running for a congressional seat in Maryland, the seat that used to be held by Elijah Cummings. And she's talking about how the Democrats don't represent her. She's a Black conservative and all that stuff. They were really leaning into that. And I was like, you guys are making a good case for being the diversity party. And then you have Charlie Kirk speak right after that. Or then you have, someone talking about we stand for the flag.
Yeah.
which is a direct coded opposition to what Colin Kaepernick was kneeling for, right? You know, like what that struggles with that. So it's like, how can you claim to be the diversity party, but then also actively support the suppression of Black voices when they're trying to tell you about what they're going through? You know, they're telling you, hey, you claim to be my friend. Friends listen to each other. Here's what I'm trying to tell you. And you're like, now you're bumming me out. I don't want to hear it. You know? So I don't know, man. Like the whole diversity party play that Republicans are going for, I was like, I don't know if this is going to be believable to anyone who isn't already a Republican.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as what I saw is the diversity part, it just seemed like Republicans were playing catch up, so they're trying to be diverse among race. Whereas the Democratic side they're like, we can always say people know we're diverse. We had the first Black president. We elected the first of many different first gay woman, first Muslim was Democrat, I believe. You know what I mean? Like first different stuff, type of stuff. The first socialist was technically a Democrat because Bernie Sanders has been caucusing with the Democrats since the get-go. He's also Jewish, and I just felt like they were being more of a diversity of thought.
Who? You mean the Democrats?
Yeah, a diversity of thoughts where like they had a progressive on talking with them, talking to them. Even though it could be argued that you do have diversity there, but your platform doesn't really show it as it should, right?
Yeah, and I think I'm sorry to cut you. I just want to add to that because I think you'll have something to add to this. To expand on your diversity of thought thing and on the whole idea of being the big tent party, they had, I think, maybe 3 or 4 Republicans, like Republican people who hold seats, speaking, especially with John Kasich having the most speaking time of those Republicans. We had the stupid thing of we are at a crossroads, and he's standing at a literal crossroads. Like, come on.
Are you serious?
Yes. I'm like, we know what crossroads are. You don't actually have to show us. And I wanted to get your take on it because I think it's a good play to be made because I do think there are a lot of disaffected Republicans who still believe in Republican values, whatever that means now, right? Because it used to be the party of small government and fiscal responsibility. But there are still Republicans who believe in Republican values, but they don't believe in the guy at the top of the ticket. And so I think there's a good play to be made for trying to pull in those people. But you were saying that the party was more about diversity of thought. What do you think about them trying to cater to those Republicans by bringing in Kasich and all this?
I get it. I get why they want to do it. But I think what they should have done is they also should have honestly just go full force on the diversity of thought. Have as many progressives as you can talking. Like you said, have the squad talking. Remove, or if you were going to have Hillary and Bill, have them together speaking as a couple, something like that.
Cut down their time by half and have the squad take up that time.
Give that opportunity to more people to talk. Well, apparently you can have a whole freaking hour speech, so you can have more speeches if you want,
Yeah.
So just have more of those. I feel like they were catering to because I kind of get the sense, and I don't know if you get the sense that they're maybe no longer thinking, okay, we can get the progressive vote. Now let's get the Republican, the disenfranchised Republican vote instead. And that kind of
wait, sorry. Are you saying that you think that they don't think they can get the progressive vote, or that they think that they already have
more progressive votes?
Okay, so you think that they feel like they've maxed out on the progressive votes?
Either they're maxed out or they just don't want to. There's just certain things that they're not willing to compromise on, right? Like my thing is, I've always been of the mind. I was like, look, if Joe Biden doesn't think that he's gonna veto M4A, why are you saying it?
But I really don't think that's the case. I really don't think he would veto it because for him to veto it, it would actually have to get to his desk. I think he feels like Medicare for all isn't something that can actually pass through the Senate.
I get that, but don't You know that's the 80% of Democrats believe want some
80% of
version of
Democrat
hold on.
voters,
Vote exactly.
not
Well,
Democrat
80% of voters want
representatives.
M4A. So if you literally don't say anything about M4A, don't say that you're going to veto M4A, or you even say I support a version, I support some version of M4A. We can definitely work on that, right?
Okay.
You just do something like now you have something that 80% of voters have said they like.
Mm-hmm.
You have. And there's a lot of people who healthcare is their single ticket.
Mm-hmm.
You know how there's people who just won't vote for a candidate
they have their
policy or something like that.
Their policy things that they look at when they're voting, and for
there's
them,
just some that
healthcare
are the top tier to them, and there's so many people that healthcare is the top tier thing. And it's even for some people because if I have to choose for myself, what my biggest single issue would be, whether it's Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, gun control, you know what I mean, like mental health. I probably would say that for me, healthcare is probably the number one thing, even though it doesn't really affect me because my job, I have good healthcare. My wife has great healthcare for her and the kids. You know, it doesn't, but I know how it affects so many Americans. And I think that's why 80% of voters are for some version of it.
So my number one issue is gun control, but and I don't want to spend too long on
No,
this,
definitely.
but I do want to know if you know, because I don't, if you know how Medicare for All would affect company-run insurance.
That's the thing, though. It's company-run companies.
Like how you get insurance through your job.
And that's the thing is, though, because there's always the opportunity, right? That there's some people that argue no public option, some public option, right? But the thing is, though, you have a better chance of getting a version of Medicare for All if it's actually on the. It's kind of like so like I was speaking about Dennis Kucinich was one of my top choices when ACA passed.
Mm-hmm.
He told a lot of people were against. You know, American Affordable Care Act wasn't as popular when it came out as it is now. I don't know if you kind of got that. Like,
well, I mean, it got slanted hard,
real hard, and I know they fixed some stuff. But like what Dennis Kucinich said on CNN was like, this is the first step. So it's kind of like basically saying we're gonna don't say you're gonna veto it. Just say we're gonna get it. We're gonna get a version of it. We're gonna start moving towards that.
Yeah.
Basically, you don't have to say because I don't know what's the holdup on him allowing his policy to be like. We're going to move towards progressive.
But did he say that? Like, I would veto it if it came on my desk?
That's what I read. I read that somewhere. I don't know 100%.
Because if he did say that is a misstep, because that is different from saying I would support something that, you know, and
it's kind of like, you know, it's a little bit of the tone deafness in the sense of, you know, there's a civil unrest going on. I don't think defunding the police, even though people don't get that defunding doesn't mean abolish. Defunding basically means it really should be.
I think that's a messaging problem with the defunding the police.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, and where he says, "Oh no, we need to give them more money." No, police need more money. When I'm like, "Yo, right now, police aren't looked at as greatly as you." You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just kind of like there's a lot of missteps on that.
The thing I will say about maybe not leaning into Medicare for All as much is. Like we said, they're trying to bring in Republicans, and they're already afraid of the socialist state and yada yada because they just don't know what any of that means.
They're afraid of the socialist utopia, like the Democrats.
Socialist utopia. So they're afraid of that, right? And he's trying to calm them down. But there's no way a Democrat president would veto a bill that came from a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. There is no way. It would make no sense for him to do that.
That's why there's that messaging problem.
Yeah. It would make no sense.
Not proper messaging coming from them. And then I have a feeling if he were able to do the proper message on basically saying, I might not give you 100% what you want, but I can at least give you a good 75% of what you want.
Yeah.
There would be more people, more progressives willing to take that compromise.
I'll take something.
Because there are some that are just like that are far left that are just not going to budge. But the thing is, though, even and this is kind of why I have a little bit of a issue with Obama. Obama gave me that false sense of progressiveness, being able to be thrown, because he kind of gave that idea of being progressive.
Yeah.
At that time, he was more progressive than the majority of.
I legitimately believe he was, though. I like no lie, I believe he was, and then I believe he got there and he realized, well, I got to get stuff through, and that includes having to get through Mitch McConnell's Senate. And Republican
and
Party.
That I can get, that I can understand, but it's after you're done with politics. Like, I kind of feel like you're still pushing that, because something that we're going to talk about on the next podcast is the protests, where now there's this whole idea that he's basically told LeBron and all of them to stop protesting and keep playing, which I'm just like, yeah, it was basically he spoke to them about that. It's still ongoing because I don't think it's been completely said by the players that they're going to keep playing.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, for me, it's kind of like you're kind of missing the message there. You're kind of, you're not, you know what? You're not seeing the forest due to the trees, because it's kind of like, yo, man, a hard protest, a hard stopping of the, if you stop people from making money, i.e. the billionaires, and you also stop fans from being able to see games that they were looking forward to seeing, that makes the conversation start.
Okay, we'll talk about that at length later, because by that time the situation
hopefully everything will be
fleshed itself out.
We'll know more for sure. Yeah. But what were we talking about?
we're talking about diversity in the party. So we've talked at length about the Democrats. Do you have anything to add about the Republicans' show of diversity in their convention?
Yeah, honestly, all I get was it from a show. Something that we probably should talk about is there seems to be a growing trend of people of color being outspoken, Republicans outspoken.
It's no longer just Candace Owens or those Mussolini brothers. I forget what their names are.
The twins,
the Hodge twins, right?
Yeah, and then there's also there's supposedly a self-proclaimed MAGA rapper. I don't know if you've heard of him. You know what I'm talking about?
Someone sent me a clip of it.
So it's just, there seems to be a growing trend of that, and all it was is they're feeding into the growth. But the thing is with that is, it's a small percentage of people of color who they're speaking to, who were probably going to vote Republican regardless. And it's basically it's letting white people know, it's like, hey, there's some of them do like what you're saying.
Yeah. You know? So you don't have to police what you're saying because this guy agrees with you.
Exactly.
So who cares if the other 80 people don't? That guy agrees with you.
What's in me is like, it's kind of like when you say somebody has 10 people of color friends, something happens, 8 of them talk against it, one of them doesn't say crap, and then one of them is on their side. They're gonna go with that one person and completely ignore the other 8 who are like,
that's why I think it's really important. And I've said this on Facebook. And I'm gonna say it to anyone listening, especially white people out there listening. If you hear someone say something racist or misogynistic or whatever it is, if you think it's wrong, say something. Say like, yo, that wasn't cool, or don't, because if you don't say anything, then that's confirmation that it's like, I guess it's nothing wrong with what I said. I can keep saying this thing.
But we can also talk about that within ourselves, self-policing within our own communities. Yeah. We talked about that in the last podcast about confronting family members who will say something that's ignorant or something that's slightly racist, right?
Yeah.
It's keeping a check on ourselves to make sure that we are be like, look, yeah, we have this on a systematic level, but we also can't be doing this on a cultural level.
Right.
We get that the systematic level actually completely goes against us, and it completely, there's laws that are against us and all that stuff. And I'm not saying, oh, how people say, I was like, oh, you're just like them. No, it's not. But we still have to check ourselves.
Yes.
To make sure that we're not doing the same crap that we're talking about other people doing to us.
Right. Exactly. All right. So diversity conversation.
We say we're not falling for it with the Republican side.
All right. Cool.